Jimmy Fallon turned to the audience and welcomed Taylor Swift onto the stage, saying, "Welcome, Taylor Swift." Taylor returned the greeting with a polite smile and replied, "Thank you, Jimmy. It's always great to be here." Jimmy reminded her that on her new album she addresses themes of social media and freedom of expression. Referencing last week's lawsuit against X and the censorship debates on TikTok, he asked, "How do you balance the massive power of your following? Everyone expects you to take a stand. Do you ever find it difficult to decide when to stay silent and when to speak up?" Taylor spoke to the challenges faced by artists today. On one hand, there's the responsibility to form genuine connections with the community. On the other, there's ensuring that what I say is understood correctly. Even an acoustic performance that goes viral can be twisted. Some people ask, "Why did you share such violent content?" While others wonder, "Why haven't you addressed this issue yet?" When Jimmy asked how she handles having such a large audience, Taylor explained her approach. "First, I stay true to my own values. Before posting anything, I ask myself, is this truly what I want to say? Then I run it by my manager and PR team for a quick review. Instead of reacting on impulse, I focus on what I stand for in the long term." Jimmy then raised the possibility of platforms being shut down. "With such a big stage, have you ever worried about it disappearing?" Taylor said her real concern is being misunderstood. The intention behind one sentence can be perceived very differently. It's tough and draining to have to clarify yourself when something comes across as harsh. That's why I think things through 3 times before posting, though I don't want to lose my authenticity. Jimmy noted that while follower counts are visible on a board, consistency is what forges a lasting identity. Then thanked Taylor. She thanked him in return, and they wrapped up the conversation. Last week's ruling in the lawsuit against X, where the court deemed the platform's refusal to remove a user's post, which had been flagged for inciting violence and infringement of freedom of expression, rekindled the social media debate. That was followed by the temporary removal and subsequent restoration of several TikTok videos that had drawn criticism for sharing useful information about vaccine safety, deepening the discussion around censorship mechanisms. Jimmy Fallon turned to Taylor Swift and asked how she felt as an artist amid all this turmoil. Taylor Swift began by emphasizing that digital platforms now lie at the heart of the public sphere. Every word she shares on her Instagram, where she has over 125 million followers, or on her Twitter, now X account, exceeding 90 million, can reach millions of people. Yet addressing such a vast audience means relying on algorithms, automatic filters, and rules that operate independently of her own will. She still can't forget that tweet promoting a song from her new album, which was labeled provocative and removed for a few hours. They called it false flagging, but during those hours her message couldn't get through, and by the time it was restored, the post's momentum had fizzled out. That loss of airtime wasn't merely a delay in promoting a track. In Taylor's view, it was an intervention at the most sensitive moment of the creative process. When artists upload lyrics and images designed to convey their emotions directly, an algorithm tagging them as dangerous or inappropriate severs the intimate connection they've built with their audience. Content that fails to reach people, or reaches them without that emotional resonance, is like cutting a live performance short. Neither the moment on stage is fully understood, nor is the artist's true intent clearly communicated. When Jimmy asked how commercial concerns factor into this process, Taylor went even deeper. Since platforms depend on ad revenue for their lifeblood, brand safety always comes first. The demands of major advertisers for brand-friendly content automatically draw hard lines. For example, Facebook's automated system once interpreted shadowy figures behind stage lights in a concert clip as calls to violence, removed the video, and Taylor's team spent days fighting to restore it. In Taylor's view, these boundaries don't only concern violence or obscenity, but also shape the very form of public discourse. Rules introduced to combat misinformation can, sometimes even more than truly harmful content, become tools to silence dissenting voices. When someone steps forward to speak about vaccine safety with real data, the algorithm can slap it with a medical misinformation tag and pull the video. Then, even after papers substantiating the science are presented, the same automated System may take months or refuse entirely to restore it. Taylor believes the solution lies in a transparent appeals mechanism. Automated systems should not be the first recourse. Instead, a real human moderator should first understand the content creator's intent and evaluate whether the flagged segment truly disseminates falsehoods or was merely misinterpreted. Even for music, this process should apply. Dancers' shadows or stage effects can be misunderstood, yet an automatic decision leaves nearly irreversible traces. Jimmy asked, "You speak of education and dialogue. How would this work in practice?" Taylor described a prototype her team has developed. First, content enters an automatic scan, and any potentially problematic titles or tags are flagged for manual review. Then the creator receives a message. "Could you clarify this section?" Once the creator replies, a moderator makes the final decision. This ensures both a rapid response and minimal wrongful judgments. This prototype also builds bridges between community managers and creators. Taylor explained that her digital management experts hold regular weekly meetings with direct contacts at Facebook and X, so they can track exactly why certain rules are applied, the platform's business priorities, and shifts in the advertising market on behalf of her audience. Being an artist no longer just means standing on stage. In the digital age, it means vigilantly monitoring platform operations and stepping in when necessary. Jimmy wondered, doesn't this process stifle an artist's spontaneous creativity? Taylor argued that spontaneity must be preserved. Sometimes I want to share something immediately rather than save it for tomorrow. That feeling is at the heart of the music. If the manual moderation process drags on too long, the energy of the moment is lost. That's why our team tags urgent content as priority, and human moderators commit to a decision within an hour. This way, the artist can respond in real time while keeping the risk of misunderstanding to a minimum. With this approach, it becomes possible to keep the digital stage both free and responsible. The results of their 2-month pilot confirm Taylor's statements. False flagging errors have dropped by 80%, creators' complaints have halved, and the environment for democratic discussion has visibly revived. At the end of the segment, Jimmy summarized Taylor's core proposals: transparent appeals mechanism, and human moderator priority, noting that public platforms dubbed social media should not be driven solely by profit and algorithms, but also by human interaction and ethical responsibility. He then transitioned to the next topic, striking the balance between the economy and the environment, leaving the audience with a profound window into the dilemma of art and freedom of expression in the digital age. During last season's worldwide concert tour, covering 80 cities, Taylor Swift's carbon footprint from equipment transport, stage builds, and travel became a focal point for critics and environmental groups. Moreover, while ticket prices were expected to remain reasonable, managing both the cost and environmental impact of backstage logistics created a tough dilemma for many major artists. Jimmy Fallon asked Taylor how she managed to strike that balance. Taylor Swift began by outlining the decisions made at the very start of tour planning. When designing my concert tour, we first set a net zero carbon emissions goal. We converted all generators powering the stage lighting to run entirely on biofuel, and we made sure our crew used trains and electric vehicles for long-distance travel whenever possible. Additionally, before each show, we partnered with local clean energy providers to supply at least 60% of the stage's electricity from renewable sources. The logistics of transport were crucial. Whereas equipment once required large diesel trucks, Taylor's logistics team mapped out routes to minimize emissions and instructed carriers to ship materials at full loading capacity. At the same time, switching all packaging materials for stage gear to 100% recyclable cardboard and biodegradable foam reduced tour packaging waste by 75% compared to the previous year. Jimmy Fallon wondered how these changes affected ticket prices. Taylor acknowledged that passing tour costs directly onto ticket buyers was unavoidable. Biofuel generators and renting electric vehicles cost about 30% more than traditional methods. However, instead of bearing that extra cost all at once, we developed alternative funding models. Through digital certificates called Green Tour Bonds, which fans could purchase voluntarily, our audience helped keep the tour carbon neutral. That meant ticket prices increased by only 5%, with the remainder covered by community contributions. Noting that fans had embraced this approach enthusiastically, Taylor said, "Thousands of people chose to protect forests around the world or fund ocean cleanups when buying a concert ticket." The Swift Green Tour hashtag on social media became more than a marketing campaign. It turned into a real movement. Yet critics did not stop there. Festival organizers argued that sustainability expenses were eating into their revenues, claiming, when these costs are passed on to ticket sales, audience numbers drop. Taylor responded to that criticism by saying, "Attendance may dip in the short term, but as our brand value rises over the long run, sponsors and partners promote sustainability. That, in turn, increases our total revenue and social impact." The concrete results of these sustainability measures made headlines as well. According to a United Nations report for its climate change program, the carbon emissions prevented during Taylor Swift's 2024 tour equaled the total emissions of 25,000 average ticketed rock concerts. The report highlighted the Green Tour Bonds model as a best practice example for the music industry. Jimmy Fallon asked Taylor to elaborate on the economic side of her vision. Between buying carbon credits and using biofuel generators, tour costs rise. How do you ensure financial sustainability? Taylor replied, "We implemented several strategies. First, we expanded sponsorship deals with eco-friendly brands, solar panel manufacturers, electric vehicle companies, and biofuel providers became official tour partners. These agreements went beyond financial support. They introduced green innovations in stage design, transportation, and production. Second, we launched special merch collections made from recycled materials. Fans chose these limited edition products, knowing their environmental benefits. 20% of merch revenues went directly to climate projects." She went on to explain how ticket pricing was adjusted. Rather than dynamic pricing, a social impact discount was offered. "We scaled ticket fees based on income levels so that no fan was excluded from our values," Taylor said. When I asked her, Jimmy asked how the model worked. She answered, "Using fan surveys and past purchase data, we optimized prices within a 10% range. We openly communicated the plan on our sites, so there were no surprises." Jimmy Fallon then asked, "How have all these efforts affected the creative side?" Taylor Swift emphasized the need to preserve spontaneous moments and creativity. "I want to bring a song or a lyric that just came to my mind directly to the stage. If everything must be planned and approved beforehand, that freshness is lost. That's why we tag urgent content as fast-track review. Human moderators examine it and decide within 1 hour. This way, artists can post spontaneous updates on social media without losing momentum or creative flow." At the end of the segment, Jimmy Fallon summarized Taylor Swift's approaches: green financing models, eco-friendly sponsorships, and social impact discounts, and how they unite economics and the environment. He noted that fan contributions, carbon credit purchases, and renewable energy use not only change audience numbers, but also transform the concert experience. He closed by announcing that the next topic would be education and social responsibility debates. In the education debate, the issue of parental rights came up first. Critical race theory added to the school curriculum, lessons on gender identity, and the scope of history textbooks sparked controversy in many families. Fallon turned to Taylor Swift and asked, "On one hand, parents demand a say in what their children learn. On the other, students have the right to gain a broad perspective. How do you strike that balance?" Taylor Swift began her answer by explaining that the curriculum must be both inclusive and transparent, emphasizing the importance of notifying families of curricular updates and clearly defining any objection processes. Last year, when human rights and world history courses were expanded in schools, some parents requested to review the content in advance and organized meetings. This preserved teacher morale while giving families' concerns a reasonable forum. Rather than offering an opt-out option for lesson content, they provided students with supplementary reading materials to introduce alternative viewpoints. Describing how this model supports students' critical thinking skills, Taylor said, "In education, We need to build bridges instead of walls. She stressed that inclusive content should be determined by expert opinions and pedagogical criteria regarding age appropriateness, with parents playing an active role in the process. She cited the example of curriculum advisory boards formed by district schools. These boards bring together teachers, parent representatives, and even a few students to review draft curricula and offer suggestions or objections. This approach secures community support while preserving teachers' autonomy. The conversation naturally shifted to foreign policy, addressing criticisms that the America First approach has weakened alliances and damaged global trust. Taylor pointed to the artist's role in building international bridges. She explained that the connections formed with people of different cultures during her world tour create a language of peace, independent of national policies. Music and culture can be powerful tools of diplomacy. At a concert in Sweden, a workshop with refugee children made headlines under the headline Humanitarian Bridges, and she led a similar project at cultural festivals in southeastern Turkey. Taylor described this humanitarian diplomacy as soft power, noting that an artist's mere presence on stage can create a positive perception in different nations. Backstage projects can serve as an informal communication channel in intergovernmental talks. Art and music can melt diplomatic chill and open channels for dialogue. After the discussion of education and foreign policy, Fallon asked, "What should the core message be for young viewers?" Summarizing Taylor's answer, "Be open to different opinions, question, and practice empathy." Taylor said that dialogue is our strongest tool. She emphasized that shaping curricula should include parents' voices and that embracing art's unifying role strengthens international cooperation. When the show ended, social media immediately lit up. Thousands of "You're bridging with Taylor" tweets praised the idea, "Parent-teacher collaboration is brilliant," or "Taylor's cultural diplomacy should be a model." Clips uploaded to YouTube, especially the segment on students' roles in advisory boards, racked up hundreds of thousands of views. On Instagram, young followers shared stories titled, "Taylor Swift's Call for Transparency in Education," while LinkedIn saw education policy experts publishing articles summarizing the conversation. In the final scene, Taylor Swift stopped to chat briefly with the audience after the show. She listened to families who wanted photos and accepted handwritten thank you notes from several students. As the cameras went off, her parting words were, "Never stop learning or teaching, because true power is born from sharing knowledge."